I was a wee lad of just 4 years old when I got my first Nintendo 64, and Super Mario 64 was one of those games that truly captivated me with a beautiful 3D world that you could explore anything. The 3D platforming genre always captivated my heart as a kid. A couple years later, they released a little bear and bird game called Banjo-Kazooie. I remember seeing these commercials, and when I played the game, it played like a dream. It expanded on everything that Super Mario 64 did, while giving us a very great comical duo and world that was just almost unprecedented. Fast forward 17 years later, on May 1st, 2015, the same people from Rare made a new team called Playtonic and was going to release a new game on Kickstarter called Yooka-Laylee. It was going to be the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. All of us were hyped. I was incredibly hyped. And definitely, I was just very excited to get a new style of Banjo-Kazooie. So with the release of Yooka-Laylee, I thought this would be a great time for us to see how much we have improved from 17 years from 1998 to 2017, the finished product. So here I present to you the comparison of both Banjo-Kazooie and Yooka-Laylee. Alright, so let's start with the overall gameplay and story of the game. Of course, you are Banjo and Kazooie, a bear and a bird, who are out to rescue their sister, Tooty, from Gruntilda the Witch in the nearby lair. So basically, they're on a 3D adventure, going on different levels and lands on to save Tooty. So you start out in the main world, Spiral Mountain. That's the overall tutorial area where you run around cruising bad guys and doing your own thing. And of course, you're talking to Bottles, learning how to train, and then going into Grunty's lair, collecting Jiggies and all that jazz. Banjo-Kazooie, of course, is a collectathon kind of game. You go around collecting different notes, feathers, all different kinds of beautiful little collectibles. Of course, you encounter different characters that have an incredible amount of personalities, ranging from the hippo who can't stop burping, and then Fatty Miss Fat who can't stop eating the acorns. And of course, you have your trademark googly eyes that every Banjo-Kazooie character needs to have. So ending there, we have to go on to Banjo and Kazooie's basic moveset. Of course, how are you gonna fight these baddies without doing a little ding-dong going at it, right? So you got your basic attacks and animations. There's nothing too crazy on the N64. Of course, you have stuff like your feathery flap, the talon trot, the beak barrage, eggs, ass eggs, invincibility, and of course swimming, and many more attacks that Banjo-Kazooie has introduced. And of course, going around different levels and going along different places, you use each of these skills wisely, so take what you will. The music is beautifully done by Grant Kirkhope, and if you guys don't know who he is a goddamn legend. He has done games for like GoldenEye, Donkey Kong 64, and he's done plenty of other titles as well. Of course, this is on the Nintendo 64, so you guys have to realize this console is all about limitations. It was done on MIDI instruments, and of course it was compressed as well. So you do get a nice little range of xylophones, you get trumpets, you get different amounts of music that are exhibited throughout the game, but of course do not expect anything orchestrated. This is a Nintendo 64 title at all. I don't even think you could stick all of that in a cartridge. And finally, we move on to the graphics. Like most N64 titles, it outputs in 240p signal, but of course there's the occasional 480i from different games such as Pokemon Stadium 2. Of course, the draw distance isn't that bad on the 64. It always had its problems when it came to draw distance, but for Banjo-Kazooie, it was decent. It wasn't anything spectacular, but looking around, you did get a nice little draw distance. Of course, enemies popped up whenever you saw them close up, but it was nothing too drastically major. The textures, of course, are not well done by today's standards. They're very horrible. They're muddy, of course, to today's standards, but of course, take it with what you will. This is a 1998 title. You gotta play it keeping that in mind. So with all of this, this is the basic understanding of everything of Banjo-Kazooie. So let's move on to the flip side and see what Playtonic has done with Yooka-Laylee. So as you may expect, this is the team from Rare, also known as Playtonic. Of course, it has a lot of similarities to Banjo, but that doesn't mean this game is bad by any means. If anything, I'm having a lot of fun with it. So let's really dive into the story. So pretty much, Yooka and Laylee are just lazing around, just doing nothing. Also, this big bad vacuum from capital B is actually sucking all the books from the entire world, including Yooka and Laylee's book that they just found from their cupboards. And conveniently, they want to get it back. It's not as strong as saving Tooty from Banjo-Kazooie, but it's a nice little focal point to the series and allows them to kind of go through with it. So it's not as powerful, but it'll do for now. Of course, they stop in their little area, Shipwreck Creek, which is similar to Spiral Mountain. Pretty much this is your tutorial area, teaching you how to play the games. You encounter one character, Trousers, I'll get into him in a little bit. But basically, you're going around the tutorial area. You start to dive into Ivory Towers. And this is going to be your Gruntilda's Lairs type of hub. Now, it's a little bit taller, it's a little bit nicer. It's, of course, it's not as spacious as I think it would be. However, I think it has a nice little high feel, which fits with the whole business corporation of Capital B. And like mentioned before, we have a great cast of characters, of course, Yooka-Laylee, who are almost spitting images of Banjo-Kazooie, which is not bad by any means, but Trousers and other characters such as Rextra, which is my spirit animal, are just great in their own right. I love them as characters. Playtonic has created great original characters that are very awesome to interact with, and of course we have the return of Googly Eyes. So like in Banjo-Kazooie, of course we have a move set for Yooka and Laylee. The training section provides a neat little section of how you can interact, but of course they have different attacks, such as the tail twirl, the flappity flight, the buddy slam, the slurp state, which kind of takes care and replace of eggs, and a couple new attacks, but I haven't gotten there yet. But so far they're almost verbatim from Banjo and Kazooie, but they kind of encapsulate what the first game was. This is the basic game. I'm pretty sure with sequels and everything they'll pretty much continue on with it. So of course Grant Kirkhope returns for the soundtrack. How could he not? But they brought in David Weiss, and if you guys don't know who he is, he's the guy who basically made the music for Donkey Kong Country. It's as legendary as it gets from there. Of course, this is a full-blown game. They're not going to use any compression tools by any means. However, it's not in orchestration mode yet. It was actually in the Kickstarter. They will work on that in a little bit, so it will be implemented in future updates. This did give the composers full reins on what kind of music they actually wanted to put for this game. It's a little more ambiatic than, let's say, Donkey Kong Country or, of course, Banjo, but however, it still pretty much fits with the entire world and aesthetic. For me, I enjoy it. They're very nice tracks, and they're very beautiful. I think they outdid themselves for sure. And lastly, for the graphics, of course, this is running in 1080p on the PS4. I'm currently playing the PS4 version. Of course, if you have a PC copy, it's going to be running at a full 60 frames, but all consoles are pretty much running at a steady 30. Post-patch, there was a patch that was applied. Pretty much it was a little bit shaky, but now it's at an almost constant 30 frames per second, and it looks fantastic. It plays great. And now with today's technology, they pretty much are using the Unity engine. What makes this game so great is the fact that all the colors and all the characters are so vibrant. We did get that in Banjo as well. However, the thing with this is now they're actually almost pixel perfect. They look beautiful. They're very outspoken in their animations and the way they look and the way they interact with the world. So it almost feels like a very cartoonish kind of vibe, like a very Saturday morning cartoon, which I love. So if anything, this allowed Playtonic to kind of perfect their initial look of what they were doing for the Banjo game. And of course, lastly, I wanted to get into the draw distance. It looks unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, pretty much because of the hardware, we have vast draw distances these days in games, and of course that exception is not for the Yooka-Laylee. It is very vast, it is beautiful, and with the expanded world, it just kind of creates that aspect even further. So for me, I really think Playtonic really went above and beyond. Just from looking at this though, I think they did great. And finally, before we even call home with this video, I think you guys need to see a little comparison both side by side of both titles. We're going to look a little bit at the aspects that we kind of talked about, such as the graphics, the music, their moveset, the way they do their animation, the draw distance. We're going to look at a little bit of everything. So if you guys can, please take a look and see for yourself. Well, there you go, guys. That's how much we have improved in 17 years. It's amazing. Back from 98 to 2017, I think the Playtonic team has done a wonderful job recreating their vision of what a 3D platformer should be in this day and age. And of course, thank you guys so much for taking the time to even look at this video and look at this comparison. If you are interested, check out my other videos. I also do other stuff for port versus port, as well as I do Twitch streams every single weekday at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Currently, I'm playing Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty. You can always check me out on my Twitch page. All the info is down below. Thank you guys. Of course, like and subscribe. Hit me up if you have any other stuff that you want me to cover or anything like that. I'm more than glad to be able to take requests and see what I can do. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.